10 years of his life. That was the price he paid for his own brother's mistake, taking the blame on himself. Alex had hoped to save the family, believing his brother would take care of their parents' house. But when he came back, all he found was poverty and the cold indifference of the man he'd sacrificed his freedom for. He wasn't afraid of prison or the cold. He was afraid of only one thing, that his mother wouldn't live to see him return. The meeting of two brothers, a broke man with a clean conscience and a rich trader, would change the fate of an entire family forever. This is a story about how low you can sink while you're climbing toward money, and how high you can rise while you're down on your knees in the mud. An October wind flung a fistful of road dust into his face. The door of the old bus hissed shut behind him. The vehicle crawled on, leaving a ribbon of exhaust in its wake. Alex stood on the shoulder and watched the red taillights dissolve into the early dusk. Back there, behind bars, silence didn't exist. Someone was always coughing, shuffling, snoring, rattling metal. Here, the world felt quiet. Only dry branches tapped against each other somewhere down by the river. Alex adjusted the strap on his backpack. Everything he'd had for the past 10 years fit into that bag. A change of underwear, a bar of soap, a piece of bread, and his release papers. It was 2004. He took a deep breath of the damp air. It smelled like wet dirt, chimney smoke, and rotting apples. The smell of childhood he'd tried to remember on long nights, but his memory only offered the stink of bleach and boiled cabbage. Alex stepped onto the asphalt. His stiff boots clicked loud against the road. He walked slowly, like he was learning all over again how to move his legs without a guard barking orders. Poplars lined the roadside, bare, black, like burnt matchsticks. The town of Maplewood started right after the bend. He stopped at a leaning sign. The letters were faded, the paint flaking off. 10 years ago, when they drove him away from here, that sign had been bright blue. Back then, he thought he'd be back in a year, 2 at most. The lawyer had promised. His brother had promised. "Well, hello," Alex rasped into the emptiness. His voice sounded foreign, like it didn't belong to him, rough and creaky. He headed down the main street. There was Old Man Miller's house, boarded up, the porch caved in. Dead, probably. And there were the Petersons, the opposite. New white siding, a tall fence. People either get rich or they steal. Alex tried not to look around. It felt like a brand was burning on his forehead, visible to everyone, even though the street was empty. His house stood out on the edge. When he saw the roof, something inside him snapped. The shingles on the right side had blackened and slid, exposing rotten slats underneath. The chimney leaned. The fence lay on the ground, swallowed by weeds. Nettles had shot up to chest height. Dry, mean. Alex swallowed. 10 years ago, his brother had sworn, looking him dead in the eye, pounding his fist against his chest. "Alex, don't worry. Mom's gonna live like a queen. I'll fix the house, I'll repair everything. You just take this on yourself. My daughter was just born. I can't go." Alex pushed the gate. It didn't squeak. It would have just fallen over if it hadn't been held up by one rusty wire. The yard was buried in trash. The path to the porch was barely there. With every step, his confidence drained. What if she's gone? What if those letters, rare, written in a trembling hand, hadn't even been sent from here? He climbed onto the porch. A board bowed under his foot, soft like a sponge. He knocked. Silence. He pressed the handle. The door, covered in torn upholstery, gave way heavily. A thick, stale smell hit him. Medicine, old clothes, dried herbs. The house was dark. "Who's there?" A quiet voice came from deep in the room. "It's me, Mom." Something clinked in the room. Then there was the sound of shuffling. A small, bent figure came out from behind the stove. She was so tiny that Alex got scared. One breath, and she'd crumble. A gray knitted sweater hung off her like a sack. She stopped a few feet from him, squinting, trying to make out the visitor in the half-light. "Alex, she whispered. Not a question, just an exhale. Me, Mom, I'm back. She didn't rush to hug him, didn't scream. She just lifted a hand, dry and dark, like a bird's claw, and crossed him. Then she pressed her face into his chest, into the stiff fabric of his cheap jacket. Alex stood there with his arms straight at his sides, not daring to touch her. He felt huge, dirty, and dangerous next to her. Alive, she mumbled into one of his buttons. Alive, thank God. Alive, Mom. I'm sorry it took so long. The main thing is you came, on your own 2 feet. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Take your coat off, honey. You're hungry, I bet. I've got soup from yesterday, nice and hearty, and potatoes. She bustled around the kitchen. That fussing was a lifeline. It filled the emptiness, kept the heavy silence from hanging there. Alex walked to the table and sat on a stool. One leg creaked under him. He looked around. The house was clean, but it was the kind of clean that comes with poverty. The wallpaper peeled off the walls. The stove was cracked, patched with clay. A plastic tablecloth on the table rubbed down to white spots at the corners. Does Andrew stop by? He asked, staring out the dark window. His mother froze at the stove. The pause stretched too long, way too long. He stops by, she said without turning around. Her voice went flat, lifeless. Brings groceries, gives money sometimes. He's busy. He's got a business now, a store, a sawmill. He's become a big man. I can see that, Alex muttered, thinking of the hole-riddled roof. Don't judge, his mother cut in softly but firmly. She set a steaming bowl of soup in front of him. He's got his own family, his own worries, and the roof, well, it barely leaks. I put buckets out. Eat. Alex picked up the aluminum spoon. It was light, unfamiliar. The first sip burned his throat, and forgotten warmth spread through his body, the warmth of home-cooked food. He ate greedily, breaking bread into big chunks, and felt his mother watching him. She sat across from him, her cheek resting on her fist, just staring, memorizing every new wrinkle on his face, every gray hair. Have I gotten real old? She asked suddenly. No, Mom. You're the same. You're lying. My eyes got bad, like everything's in a fog now. The doctor says it's cataracts. I need surgery, but there's no money. We'll do it, Alex said firmly, even though the last crumpled bill was sitting in his pocket. I'll go work. I've got hands. Where are you going to go? His mother sighed. There's no work on the farm. They shut it down back in '98. The men either drank themselves to death or moved to the city. The only work around here is with Andrew. Alex squeezed the spoon until his fingers went white. We'll figure it out. He slid the empty bowl away. We're out of bread, Mom. I completely forgot. Andrew promised he'd bring some, got tied up, I guess. The store's open, though. New, nice, right by where the old community hall used to be. Just don't start anything there, okay? We've got all kinds of people here now. I'm not going to start anything, Mom. I'm going for bread. He stood up and pulled on his jacket. As he headed out, he noticed his mother crossing his back. Outside, it was fully dark. The streetlights weren't on. The only light came from house windows and a bright sign glowing in the middle of the street. The store looked like something out of place dropped into town. Yellow siding, plastic windows. Over the entrance, neon letters burned. Groceries, Morrison's. His brother's last name, glowing in the night, jabbed at his pride. Their father had been the most respected carpenter in the county. Now, their name was a brand. Alex climbed the steps and pushed the heavy door. Inside, it was warm and bright. It smelled like smoked meat and laundry detergent. Shelves were packed with goods. 10 years ago, this had been a half-empty store. Now, it was abundance. Behind the counter, a bored clerk in her 40s sat there. Heavy makeup, cheap beads around her neck. Alex recognized her, Gina. 2 grades behind him in school. Back then, she'd giggled and flirted with her eyes. Now she looked him over, slow and appraising. "Give me some bread," Alex said, walking up to the counter. Gina slowly lowered her magazine. Her gaze slid over his face, paused on the scar, dropped to the cheap jacket and dirty boots. "Hey, Alex," she drawled. "So you're back." "I'm back. Give me bread, white and wheat." "You got money? Or you gonna beg for credit?" "I've got money." Alex pulled out a bill and laid it on the counter. Gina took it with 2 fingers like it was nasty, held it up to the light. She named the price. Alex scraped together his coins, exactly enough. He grabbed a box of tea, too. "You want the cheap stuff?" Gina smirked. "Though for you, I guess it doesn't matter." "Gina." Alex lifted his eyes to hers, a heavy, direct look, the kind that made the toughest guys in a cell go quiet. "Just give me the tea." She shut her mouth. Without a word, she tossed the tea and 2 loaves onto the counter. He scooped the groceries into his arms and had already turned to leave when the door opened. A guy in uniform walked in, a local cop, judging by the patches. His face was red, steamed up. "Oh, Gina, I need some whiskey and—" He cut himself off when he saw Alex. For a second, they stared at each other. "Morrison, when'd you get out?" "Today." "You'll come in tomorrow to check in, and watch yourself." The cop jabbed a thick finger in his direction. "One screw up and you're going right back. Your brother's a respected man around here." "Don't embarrass him, got it?" "Got it. I'll come by tomorrow." Alex stepped outside. The air felt icy. He pressed the bread to his chest. It was still warm. "Don't embarrass your brother." Those words rang in his ears louder than the wind. He stood on the porch of the store his brother had built with money earned off someone else's freedom, with money Alex had paid for with 10 years in prison. He looked down at his hands, rough, scraped up. Then he looked at the glowing sign again. He spat, tugged up his collar, and stepped into the darkness, back toward the edge of town, where his mother's house stood. The only place he was wanted. And even there, he felt like a stranger. The wind picked up, tearing the last leaves off the trees. Rain began to fall. Morning didn't start with roosters. There were hardly any left in town. It started with a monotonous, mind-melting sound. Alex opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. Right over the bed, a dark stain spread out like a map of an unknown continent. Water dripped from its edge and fell into a bucket on the floor. The house was cold. His breath showed. Alex threw back the blanket that smelled like mothballs and sat up, lowering his feet onto the icy floorboards. His mother was already awake. Dishes clinked in the kitchen. He got dressed fast, pulled on pants and a sweater, shoved his feet into his boots. He picked up the bucket. The water inside was rust-colored. He dumped it out and climbed up into the attic. The attic smelled like dust and mice. Gray beams of autumn light came through gaps in the roof. It was worse than he thought. The rafters, once strong and sticky with resin, had turned to crumbly rot. In one spot, a beam had rotted clean through and sagged, dragging roof sheets down with it. The wood was black, slick to the touch. Alex poked it with his finger. It gave way like soggy bread. "Damn," he breathed. This wasn't something you could patch. This needed everything replaced. Rafters, slats, the whole roof. A week of work for a few guys, or a month for one man, if you had the materials. And there were no materials. He climbed back down, brushing cobwebs off his shoulders. His mother stood at the table slicing bread. Her hands shook. "It's bad up there, Alex?" "It all needs replacing. We need lumber, beams, boards." She leaned heavily on the table. "Where are we supposed to get that? My check doesn't come for another week, and we haven't bought firewood for winter." "I'll go see Andrew," Alex said evenly. His mother flinched. "Don't go, honey. He's different now. Complicated. Always complaining taxes are killing him. Don't go. I'm begging you." "You can't make it through winter with plastic sheeting." Alex zipped up his jacket. "I'm not going there to beg, Mom. I'm going there to take what's mine." He didn't explain. He didn't remind her that 10 years ago it was Andrew himself, drunk and terrified, who came running to him in the middle of the night. Shaking, smearing tears across his face. "Alex, they're gonna lock me up. I was at the warehouse, we only took a few crates, and there was a night watchman. I shoved him, he fell, hit his head. I've got a baby girl, my wife will leave." And Alex, the older one, the strong one, the soft-hearted one, took the blame. He thought he'd get probation for some stupid assault charge. But the watchman died 3 days later in the hospital. Alex got 10 years in a maximum security prison. In those 10 years, he lost everything. He stepped outside. The rain had stopped pouring, but the sky was still dark. The road had turned to mush, mud sucking at his boots. Andrew's sawmill was on the other end of town. The place was fenced off with a tall barrier. Barbed wire ran along the top. A guard shack stood at the gate. The guard, a guy in a jacket 2 sizes too big, came out. "What do you want? You're ordering boards. You go to the office, but the boss isn't seeing anyone today." "I'm his brother." "Alex Morrison." The guard looked him up and down, cheap jacket, old pants, buzz cut. He smirked. "Brother, huh? Hold on, I'll call." He came back a minute later. "Go on in, trailer with the white door." Alex stepped onto the yard. 2 workers rolled a log across the ground. A saw howled, sawdust flying. In the middle of the yard sat a silver SUV. It looked like a spaceship. The trailer sat up on bricks. Alex climbed the shaky steps, knocked, and went in without waiting. Inside it was hot, space heater running. Behind a desk buried in paperwork sat Andrew. His brother had put on weight. His face was round now, smooth. A second chin had formed. A gold chain hung at his neck. The fingers gripping an expensive pen were puffy and pale, not a callus anywhere. Andrew looked up. There was no joy in his eyes, just fear instantly covered by a mask of business-like concern. "So you showed up?" he said instead of hello. "Hi, Andrew." "Yeah, hi. Don't just stand there. Come in, don't block the door. You're letting the heat out." Alex stepped forward. "Mom's roof is leaking. It needs to be replaced." Andrew grimaced, lit a cigarette with a flick of an expensive lighter. "I know about the roof. I was going to send a crew in the spring. By spring, the house will rot. Water's dripping onto her bed. She'll put a bucket under it." Andrew waved him off, blowing smoke at the ceiling. "So what did you come for? You need money?" He reached into the desk drawer, pulled out a thick wallet, yanked out a bill, and tossed it onto the table. "Here, take it. Buy yourself some decent clothes. You walk around looking like a scarecrow." Alex stared at the bill. Inside him, a hot, dark wave rose. "I don't need money. I need lumber, boards, beams, and a truck to haul it." "Lumber costs money," Andrew said sharply. His eyes turned cold. "I've got accounting. I can't just give inventory away. This is a business. Every board is tracked." "A business?" Alex echoed quietly. "And 10 years ago, when I went in for you, what kind of business did we have? My life for your freedom?" Andrew sprang up. His chair shot back into the wall. Red blotches spread across his face. "Shut up. Don't you dare throw that in my face. I didn't ask you. You made yourself into some hero. Whose fault is that?" "I felt sorry for you and your newborn daughter." "Don't you touch my daughter." Andrew came around the desk, stepping in close. He smelled like expensive cologne and cognac. "You think I sat around living easy those 10 years? I worked. And now you come in here making demands. I'm asking you to help Mom, not me. I help Mom. I bring groceries. I give her money. And you?" Andrew jabbed a finger into his chest. "You're a problem for me now. You know what people in this county will say if they find out a Morrison's brother is an ex-con? Partners will walk. Inspections will start rolling in one after another." Alex said nothing. He looked into his brother's eyes and saw not rage, but fear. Animal fear. The fear of a man who built his castle on sand and knows one wave could wash it all away. Andrew had convinced himself he was right. He'd rewritten the past so he could sleep at night. "So you're not giving me the boards?" Alex asked. His voice was dry as an autumn leaf. "Buy them," Andrew snapped, turning toward the window. "I'll ring it up with a family discount, 15%. Go to accounting, pay, they'll deliver tomorrow." Alex looked at the bill on the table, then at his brother's back in a black leather jacket. "Got it. Thanks for the discount." He turned and walked out, closing the door carefully and quietly, even though he wanted to slam it so hard the windows would shatter. Outside, the rain started again. Workers by the saw watched him as he passed. Alex walked toward the gate, feeling a heavy, cold stone shift inside him. There were no illusions left. He stepped out beyond the fence and took a deep breath of wet air. The last bill was still in his pocket. His feet carried him toward the local town office building, where men gathered in the mornings to smoke. 3 guys stood by the steps, 2 younger ones with crumpled faces, and an old man, old Cormac, the forever watchman of anything that could be watched. Their conversation died as Alex approached. "Hey, guys." The younger ones traded a look, turned away, spit. Cormac narrowed his eyes under shaggy brows and dragged on his cigarette. "Hey to you too, Morrison. So you're out." "I'm out. I need work. Anything. I've got hands. My back's still strong." The old man shook his head. "There's plenty of work in town, but nobody's got money to pay. Everyone runs to your brother, but he doesn't take everybody. Peterson's fence fell over, for example, but they won't call you." "Why not?" "They're scared. They say you killed a man, and they've got kids. Your name's got a bad stink on it, Alex. They say you were some kind of shot caller in prison." Alex smirked. Small-town gossip moved faster than the internet. If they only knew how he'd spent 10 years loading logs in snow up to his waist, earning a hernia and a wrecked back. "We need a hole dug," one of the younger guys said suddenly, not looking at Alex. "New farmer out on the edge. It's clay and rock out there. You can't get a tractor in. He pays peanuts. Nobody wants it." "How much?" $500 a yard, about 6 yards, 3 meters deep. 3,000. Almost enough for a stack of boards. "Where?" "Across the river. Ask Saville. Just know he's cheap. Bring your own shovel." Alex nodded and headed home for a shovel. As he walked past, he saw his mother trying to set a dented bucket under the downspout, a tiny figure against a huge gray sky. In the shed, he found an old spade shovel with a cracked handle. He wrapped it with electrical tape, tested it for weakness. It held. "Where are you going, honey?" his mother called from the porch. "To work, Mom." "I'll be back by evening." He slung the shovel over his shoulder and marched toward the river. Anger pushed him forward. He'd dig that hole. He'd earn that money. He'd fix the roof. And he would never ask his brother for anything again. The bridge over the river creaked under his feet. Dark water churned below, carrying fallen leaves. On the far bank, he could see the brick house that belonged to Farmer Saville. Alex quickened his pace, head lowered like a bull. This was his only currency, strength. And he was going to sell it to buy the right to look his mother in the eyes. The clay was heavy, greasy, like putty. Alex had been digging for 4 hours already. The hole was chest deep. The boots Saville had given him, old rubber ones, 2 sizes too big, squelched with every step. "Go deeper," Saville yelled from above, standing at the edge in a dry raincoat and flicking ash down into the pit. "You should hit sand soon." Alex didn't answer and drove the shovel in again. The blade struck something hard. Metal clanged. The shovel slid and kicked sideways. His left palm lit up like someone had pressed a hot iron to it. He shouted, dropped the shovel, clutched his hand to his stomach. Blood ran through his fingers. A jagged piece of rusty metal stuck out of the clay. His palm was split open deep. Bone showed for a second before it filled with red again. Saville spit, but worry cut into his voice. "Bad?" "Manageable. Get out. That needs stitches." Alex climbed out of the hole, grabbing slick roots with his good hand. His head swam. He pressed the wound with the sleeve of his sweater. The wool soaked instantly, turning sticky and warm. "Go to the clinic," Saville said. "It's straight across the field like a kilometer. I'm not putting you in my truck like that." "And the money?" "What money? You didn't finish." He pulled out 2 crumpled bills. "Here, an advance. You finish digging, I'll give you the rest." Alex took the bills with blood-smeared fingers, shoved them in his pocket, and headed back toward town. That kilometer felt like forever. His hand throbbed. Every heartbeat punched pain into his palm. But worse than the pain was the shame, walking across the field filthy, with a wet red rag wrapped around his hand. The clinic, a brick building under a new blue roof, glowed with warm windows. Alex pushed the door open. Inside it smelled like rubbing alcohol and something faintly feminine. White walls, shiny linoleum, flowers on the windowsills. He felt like a lump of mud thrown onto a white tablecloth. "Anybody here?" he called out. A door to an exam room opened. "1 minute. I'm sterilizing instruments." A voice. Alex froze. He would have recognized that voice out of 1,000. He'd heard it in his dreams for all 10 years. Natalie stepped into the hallway, drying her hands on a towel. She lifted her eyes and went still. Her gaze darted over his face, scar, stubble, hollow cheeks, then dropped to the hand he was holding against his stomach. "Alex," she said. There was no fear in her eyes like Gina's at the store, and no disgust like Saville's. There was something else, something that stole Alex's breath. Deep pain mixed with recognition. "Hi, Natalie. I cut myself a little." She snapped out of it. The professional mask slid back into place, but her hands, he saw it, trembled. "Come into the exam room, now." The room was bright. She pointed to the table. "Sit. Put your hand on the tray." He unwound the sleeve soaked through with blood. It wasn't pretty. The wound had gaped open, pale flesh showing, mixed with rust and clay. Natalie didn't flinch. She pulled on gloves. "This is going to hurt. I have to flush it out." Hydrogen peroxide foamed and hissed, bubbling up. Alex clenched his teeth, staring at the wall, and didn't make a sound. "Deep," she said quietly, picking out grains of dirt with tweezers. "The tendon's intact, but we'll have to stitch it. At least 3 stitches. Stitch it." She stood so close he could feel the warmth of her body. She smelled like lavender. That scent made his head spin harder than the blood loss. While she drew painkiller into a syringe, he watched her hands, slim wrists, neat nails. On the ring finger of her right hand, nothing. No ring, not even a pale mark. He knew she'd gotten married a year after he went to prison. "When did you get back?" she asked. Her voice trembled just a little as she tied the first knot. "Yesterday." "Why didn't you come by?" "And for what? I'm not your match anymore, Natalie. You're respected, you're a nurse. And me? Who am I? An ex-con." She jerked her head up. Tears flashed in her eyes. "You're such an idiot, Morrison. Always have been. Still are." "Maybe I am. At least I'm not a traitor." She froze with the needle in her hand. "I know, Alex." The silence in the exam room turned deafening. "What do you know?" he whispered. "Everything. I know it wasn't you. I know people saw Andrew by the warehouse that night, that he came running home white as a sheet, and that you walked straight to the sheriff the next morning." She tightened her grip on his wrist. "Don't jerk. This'll come out crooked." "How do you know?" "Andrew's first wife, when she left him, got drunk and ran her mouth outside the store. Nobody believed her, of course. Andrew's rich, generous, donates to church, and you were already locked up. But I knew you, Alex." She tied the last knot and snipped the thread. "There. It'll heal. There'll be a scar, but you're used to that." She picked up the bandage. Now her touch changed, softer, almost gentle. "Why didn't you write?" The question slipped out on its own. Natalie paused for a second, then kept rapping. "I did. The first year I sent like 10 letters. Not one answer. I never got them. I know. Then someone told me you asked me not to write. That you had a different life, that you wanted to forget. Andrew passed that along. He said, "Don't wait for him. It's a long sentence. I don't want to ruin her life." I cried. And then Blake asked me to marry him. My mom was sick, and I was scared to be alone. Forgive me, Alex. She secured the bandage and stroked his wrapped hand with her thumb. That touch burned straight through him. He wanted to grab her hand and forget all 10 of those cursed years. But he looked down at his filthy pants, at the clay under his nails. Gently, but firmly, he pulled his hand free. There's nothing to forgive, Natalie. You did the right thing. He stood up. How much do I owe you? She looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Get out of here, Morrison. Alex gave a crooked half smile, for the first time in 2 days. Thank you. You've got a light hand. He headed for the door. Right at the threshold, she called after him. Alex! He turned. Natalie stood by the little table, hugging herself by the shoulders like she was cold. Come in for a dressing change the day after tomorrow, otherwise it'll get infected. She hesitated. And don't believe Andrew. About anything. He's a dangerous man now. I know. Take care of yourself, Natalie. He stepped outside. The rain had stopped. The cold was tightening. Puddles had skinned over with thin crystal ice. Alex filled his lungs. His hand hurt, but now it was the right kind of pain, the kind that said he was alive. She knew. All these years she'd known he wasn't a killer. That thought warmed him better than any stove. But along with the warmth came bitterness. Andrew hadn't just stolen 10 years of his life. He'd stolen her. He'd intercepted letters, lied, built his happiness on his brother's ruins. Just you wait, little brother, Alex whispered into the dark. There were $5 in his pocket, enough for bread, not enough for a roof. He started toward home, faster now, more sure of his steps. A figure darkened the doorway of the house. Someone sat hunched on the bench, shivering in the cold. A cigarette ember twitched nervously. Alex tensed. He came closer. The figure jumped up, a skinny kid in a leather jacket, a cap pulled low over his eyes. Uncle Alex. Who are you? I'm Blake, local. We need to talk. Serious. Alex exhaled. The day felt endless, and his legs were trembling with exhaustion. It's about your brother, Andrew. I know how to set things right and make some money. Alex looked at the teenager, at his eyes burning like fire, and understood. Today's tests weren't over. Come inside. We don't talk business out in the street. He pushed the door open and let the uninvited guest go first. Inside, the house smelled like dried sage and old paper. His mother was asleep behind the curtain, steady breathing, a faint whistle to it. Alex walked into the kitchen and nodded Blake toward the stool by the window. The kid sat, his leg bouncing. In the dull bulb light, he looked like a child. Thin neck, Adam's apple sticking out, jacket flaring at the shoulders like the wings of a wounded bird. But in his eyes, an angry, hungry determination. Alex set the kettle on the hot plate. All right, out with it. What kind of justice is keeping you up at night? Blake leaned forward. The finished goods warehouse. There was a delivery today. New tools, chainsaws, generators, copper cable. Security's weak. There's a lot of money sitting in there. Alex stared at the kid and didn't see him. He saw himself at 25, and Andrew, young, shaking with greed and fear. We'll just take a couple crates. Nobody'll know. And where are you going to move all that? Alex asked calmly, cradling his bandaged hand. Fences around here. They'll take any metal, no questions asked. We split it 50-50. You need that roof fixed. I saw you climbing up to the attic. And your brother's cheap. Everybody knows that. So you decided to be my helper? Alex smirked. And what about him? Blake flared. He profits off everyone. Cuts timber, pays pennies. He fired my grandma because she's old. even though she worked there 10 years. This isn't stealing, it's collecting what's owed. Alex rose heavily and stepped right up to Blake. The kid jerked back, pressing into the chair, suddenly scared of this shadow looming over him, this boulder with a prison past. "Listen to me," Alex said quietly, but his voice was heavy. "You think you're the smartest one in the room? I know the setup. The back fence is rotten. I fed the dog." "Shut up." Blake stopped mid-sentence. Alex lifted his bandaged hand and tapped the white bundle against the kid's chest. "You see this? This is from digging clay today, for $5. I dug till I bled. You know why? Because I sleep at night." "You're a sucker," Blake shouted, forgetting caution. "Your brother screwed you, set you up, stole 10 years, and you're still breaking your back for pennies. You could punish him." Alex grabbed the kid by the jacket collar and yanked him close. Blake wheezed, eyes wide with terror. "What do you know about prison? Watched too many shows?" Something old and cold came off Alex, rage that had been sitting there for years, and Blake went limp. "There's no romance in there. There's stink. The non-stop stink of unwashed bodies and fear. You'll wake up not knowing if you'll make it to lights out. You'll dream about a piece of bread without mold. And most of all, you'll remember tonight, this kitchen, the warmth, the kettle, and think, what an idiot I was." Alex loosened his fingers. Blake collapsed back onto the stool, gulping air. "Andrew's a piece of trash, that's true," Alex went on, turning back to the stove. The kettle started to hiss. "But if you steal from him, you won't punish him. He's got insurance, connections, he'll buy new saws, and you'll get locked up and broken. You won't survive in there, Blake. You're soft." "I'm not soft," the kid snapped, but his voice shook. "I just want to live like a normal person. If you want to live, work." "Where?" Blake jumped up, knocking the stool over. The crash ripped through the house like a gunshot. "On a farm for scraps? Or go to the city where they don't even see us as people? Easy for you to talk. You already lived your life. I'm 19. I need it now." "The only thing you need now is a noose," Alex cut him off. "Forget the warehouse. The guard will get drunk and pass out, that part's true. But they put in cameras last week, hidden ones. Andrew's got a monitor in his SUV. He'll see you before you even climb the fence." Blake froze. "You're lying." "Go check. Risk your freedom. 10 years for a couple chainsaws. Great trade." Greed, fear, and resentment fought on the kid's face. Resentment that the man he'd counted on as an older mentor turned out to be just some regular guy, boring and right. "I thought you were tough," Blake said bitterly. "But you're a doormat. Your brother's using you and you just take it." He spat on the floor. Alex stood there, staring at the boiling kettle. Doormat. The word burned. Maybe the kid was right. Maybe all that honesty was just fear. Fear of going back to the place where the sky looks like a cage. Behind the curtain, the bed creaked. "Alex," his mother called. He flinched and turned off the hot plate. "You're not asleep, Mom?" "How could I sleep with all that yelling? Who was that?" "Blake, Nora's grandson?" "It was." "What did he want?" Alex hesitated as he poured boiling water into a mug. "He wanted money." "And what did you do?" "And I told him, Mom, that easy money is the heaviest thing on your soul." She smiled. "You told him right. Your father used to say the same thing. He was strict, but he never took what wasn't his. And you don't take it either. Dirt washes off, Alex, but your conscience doesn't." She reached across the table and covered his good hand with hers, dry and hot. "Thank you for not going with him. I was lying there praying. Thinking, he's gonna say yes. That hurt sits in you. I can see it. You're stronger than Andrew. He thinks strength is money and the fear he puts into people. But strength is staying human when they shove your face into the mud." Alex drank his tea, burning his lips. His mother's words settled over his heart like balm. He looked out the dark window. Blake had left angry, wound up, Guys like that don't stop just because someone tells them to. "Mom, I'm going to take a short walk," Alex said, setting the mug down. "Where are you going at night? It's already after 11. "I'm going to get some air. It's stuffy in here." He didn't tell her about that chill that always settled under his ribs right before trouble. Blake was dumb and proud. To prove he wasn't a coward, he might go for it, even hearing about cameras that, of course, weren't there. Alex had made that up to scare the kid off. "Bundle up," his mother said, and that was all. Alex pulled on his jacket and stepped out onto the porch. The town was asleep. The darkness was pitch black, but in the direction of the old yard where Andrew's operation was, the sky looked wrong. Not black, but rusty, uneasy. Like a second, angry sun was rising behind the trees. Alex sniffed. The wind was coming from that way, and beneath the smell of damp leaves there was a new note, sharp and unmistakable. Smoke. "Idiot," Alex breathed. "What an idiot you are." He took off running. The fire roared. Alex heard it long before he reached the sawmill. A low, gut-deep rumble drowned out the wind and the barking dogs. Alex ran, wheezing. Cold air burned his lungs, but his face was already getting hit with heat. The sawmill gates were flung wide open, the guard shack empty. In the center of the yard, where that morning there had been a neat warehouse, hell was raging now. Flames blasted out from under the roof, twisting metal like paper. Something inside boomed and exploded. "Hey!" Alex yelled, but his voice disappeared into the crackle of burning wood. "Anybody there?" No one. Only dancing shadows. He lunged toward the guard shack. The door was cracked open. A radio played on the table. An unfinished bottle and a glass sat there. The guard was gone. Alex burst back out. His eyes caught a dark spot near the warehouse doors. On the concrete, 2 steps from the wall of fire, lay an old greasy cap the guard never took off. "Simon!" Alex screamed, sprinting for the building. He saw him. The watchman lay inside, half-pinned under a collapsed rack of boards. He'd probably rushed in to put it out, breathed in smoke, and went down. His clothes were already starting to smolder. Alex didn't think. He ran to the fire station box, yanked down a bucket, scooped water from a barrel, and dumped it over himself. The icy water burned his skin. He filled his lungs and stepped into the fire. Alex dropped to all fours. There was a little more air closer to the ground. He crawled by touch. The concrete floor was hot. The hair on his arms curled from the heat. There. Alex grabbed Simon by the collar of his jacket. The old man was heavy, limp. "Come on, Simon, come on!" Alex rasped through clenched teeth. He jerked. His left hand, the one Natalie had stitched up just a couple hours ago, blew up with pain. The bandage soaked instantly, blood seeping through the fabric. Alex growled. He shifted his grip with his good hand, braced his feet on the floor. Melted plastic dripped from the beams overhead. One pull, another. He dragged Simon inch by inch. Smoke tore at his throat. His lungs begged for air. But there was nothing to breathe, only death. Something screeched overhead, ugly and threatening. Alex looked up. A metal beam, glowing red hot, was slowly bending down. He gathered what he had left. He shoved his shoulder under Simon's side and pushed him out. Then he tumbled out after him, face first into cold dirt. Behind him came a crash. The beam fell right where Alex had been a second earlier. He lay there, gulping icy air mixed with smoke. The coughing turned him inside out. Nearby, Simon groaned and coughed. Alive. Alex managed to roll onto his back. The sky spun. His hand pulsed so hard he wanted to chop it off just to end the agony. Tires squealed. Headlights cut across his eyes. A door slammed. "My warehouse, my lumber!" Andrew screamed. He ran around the burning building, clutching his head. His expensive jacket hung open, his shirt pulled out of his pants. He looked like a crazed kid whose toy had been taken. "It's burning. Everything's burning. Where are the firefighters? I'm gonna sue them all." He didn't see Alex. He didn't see Simon. He only saw his money, his status, his empire disappearing into the flames. Alex spit black saliva and wiped his face, smearing soot. "Andrew!" His brother froze, turned, saw two figures on the ground. He rushed over, but his eyes weren't on the people. They were on the warehouse behind them. "Did you do this? Set it on fire? Revenge, huh?" Alex slowly stood up, swaying. Blood dripped from his left hand. "You're an idiot, Andrew. Look." He nodded at Simon, who was coughing and trying to sit up. "Your watchman was passed out drunk. The place caught fire on its own." "On its own?" Andrew grabbed Alex by the front of his jacket. "Who did it? You see anyone?" Alex looked his brother in the eyes. Animal fear sloshed there. "I was saving a human being," he said, forcefully peeling Andrew's hands off his jacket. "And you're screaming about boards. Your brand new chainsaws burned. The generator too. Everything." Andrew went pale. His knees buckled. "How do you know about the saws?" "I know. Someone tried to steal today. Blake wanted to. Guess he tossed a match wrong when he climbed in." "Blake." Andrew whispered the name with hatred. "I'll choke him with my bare hands." A siren wailed in the distance. A fire truck tore in at speed. An ambulance followed close behind. Natalie jumped out of it. She saw the fire, saw Andrew by the flames, and Alex, black with soot, clutching a bleeding hand. "Alex!" She ran to him, forgetting her medical bag. She caught him before he could fall. Her white coat instantly smeared with ash. "Any burns? Did you breathe in smoke?" "I'm fine," he rasped, trying to smile. "Just the hand. I think the stitches blew." Natalie looked at his hand. The bandage was soaked all the way through with red. "Alex," she whispered, and there were tears in her voice. "In the rig. Now. Simon, too." Firefighters unrolled hoses, shouting commands. A jet of water hit the wall of flame, raising a cloud of hissing steam. But there was nothing left to save. The frame collapsed, burying the new tools, the lumber, and Andrew's dreams of expansion. Andrew stood off to the side, staring at the ruin. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't running anymore. He just deflated, like a punctured ball. Alex sat on the ambulance step while Natalie cut away the bandage. The pain was dull, aching. "Alex," she called softly. "Yeah?" "Why did you go in there? You could have burned alive." "There was a person in there, Natalie." She lifted her eyes to him. In the flashing lights, her face looked pale but beautiful, severe, clean beauty. "I know," she said. "I always knew you were like that." Andrew walked up. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in one night. The leather jacket hung on him like a sack. He glanced at Natalie, at Simon while the nurse checked his blood pressure, and finally his eyes stopped on his brother. "You knew Blake was going to go in there?" "He came to me, offered to split it. I ran him off, told him you had cameras." Andrew gave a bitter, crooked laugh. "There aren't any cameras, just fake ones. I cheaped out." "I know. I lied to scare him off. Didn't work." Andrew dragged his hands down his face. $5 million. $5 million worth of inventory, on credit, not insured. Alex stayed silent. He didn't feel sorry for the money. He felt sorry for his brother because right then, losing millions, Andrew was starting to understand something else. "Alex." Andrew hesitated, staring at the toes of his expensive shoes sinking into the mud. "You really pulled Simon out?" "He crawled out. I just helped." Andrew lifted his head. Tears stood in his eyes. "Thank you," he forced out. "If he'd burned, they would have locked me up. Fire code violations, a drunk watchman, time." The word hung in the air. Time. The thing Andrew feared more than death. The thing Alex had saved him from 10 years ago, and saved him from again tonight. "No problem," Alex said. "Just live." Andrew stepped toward him like he wanted to hug him, but stopped. The wall between them, built out of lies and guilt, had cracked, but it hadn't fallen. Too many bricks still held it up. "I'll bring lumber tomorrow," Andrew said fast. "For the roof, the shingles, I'll send a crew. You hear me? Free, Alex. All of it free." Alex looked at him, tired. "Bring it. It'll calm Mom down." Natalie finished the dressing change. "You need a hospital," she said firmly. "We'll have to stitch it again. And you've got burns on your back. Your jacket burned through." "I'm not going. I'll lie low at home." "You're going," Andrew cut in. His voice strengthened, those familiar commanding notes returning, but now they sounded different, with care in them. "I'm taking you right now. Get in the SUV." Alex wanted to refuse, but he was done. His legs shook, circles floated in front of his eyes. The adrenaline drained away, leaving emptiness and pain. He nodded. Andrew offered him his shoulder, the same one in that expensive leather jacket he guarded like treasure. Alex leaned on his brother. They walked to the vehicle, two men with the same last name and completely different fates, stepping over black, scorched ground. The fire was dying down, the flames quieting into glowing embers. And along with the warehouse, the old hatred was burning out too. Not all the way, not instantly, but the ash was already cooling. Alex looked back. Natalie was watching them go. She wasn't smiling, but there was a promise in her eyes. A promise that tomorrow would come, and it would be different. "Don't mess up the interior," Andrew started to say, then waved it off. "Ah, screw the interior. Get in, brother." The first snow came early that year. It covered the black ash where the warehouse had burned, hid the fall mud under a white blanket, and whitened the new roof on their mother's house, still smelling like fresh pine resin. Alex stood in the yard, leaning on the shovel handle. His left hand, still wrapped, ached with the changing weather. Natalie had said it would be like that now, forever, like a barometer. But it was his pain, and it was manageable. He looked at the roof. The shingles lay flat, sheet to sheet. The crew Andrew sent worked 3 days straight. Either they feared the boss or respected his brother. In town now, it was hard to tell where fear ended and respect began. The door creaked. His mother stepped onto the porch, a scarf draped over her shoulders, squinting at the bright light reflecting off the snow. "Alex, come have some tea." Her voice sounded clearer, younger. That trembling note that had cut into his heart those first days was gone. "Coming, Mom. I'm just clearing the path a little more." Physical work, even with one hand, felt good. This wasn't mindless labor forced on him. This was work for himself, for his home. A familiar silver SUV rolled up and stopped by the gate. Now it didn't look like a spaceship anymore, just a car, splattered with mud, a crack in the bumper. Andrew got out. He'd lost weight over the month. His face looked drawn, the shine was gone, but his eyes were calmer. Instead of that flashy leather jacket, he wore a plain puffer coat. "Hey, brother." He reached a hand through the gate. Alex pulled off his mitten and shook it, firm, dry, no extra words. "Coming in? Mom's making pies. Cabbage." Andrew glanced at his watch, then waved it off. "Yeah, sure. Work can wait." They walked in together, and the stove's warmth wrapped around them the second they stepped inside. The smell of baked dough filled every corner. The kettle was already on the table and cups with blue flowers, the special set their mother only pulled out for big occasions. "Andrew!" Anna threw up her hands. Her face lit with such a smile the whole room felt brighter. "Come in, sweetheart. I had a feeling. I set the table for two." Andrew sat down in the spot he'd loved as a kid, with his back to the stove. Here he looked big and a little awkward, like he'd outgrown this house the way you outgrow an old shirt, but now he was trying to squeeze back into it. "How's business?" Alex asked, breaking open a hot pie. "Little by little. I took out a loan. We're building a new warehouse. Smaller than the old one, but we'll manage." He winced and took a sip of tea. And Blake took off, went to the city. His mom came by crying, begging me not to press charges. And you didn't? What's the point? I lock him up, and then what? You told me the right thing that night at the fire. Idiots need to be cured, not jailed. He went quiet, crumbling the pie with his fingers. And I'm trying to make up for my own sins, Alex. Their mother listened without a word, her cheek propped on her hand. She didn't dig into details about loans and arson. She saw the main thing. Her two sons were sitting at the same table, drinking tea. Her prayers, whispered at night in an empty room, had reached the right address. Alex, Andrew said, lifting his eyes. I've been thinking. I need a foreman at the mill, a solid one, someone who doesn't drink and keeps order. You want it? Alex froze with the cup at his lips. With you? With who else? Some stranger? You know lumber better than I do, and the guys respect you. After what happened with Simon, stories are going around. They say you're charmed. Fire can't touch you. Alex smirked. Can't touch me, that's for sure. Hands still not ready, though. You'll work with your head. We've got plenty of hands, not enough brains. I'll pay you right, not like your family, like you're a specialist. Alex looked at his mother. She gave the smallest nod, just with her eyes. Then he looked out the window, where snow was falling, settling the town into quiet. I'll think about it, he said. But they both knew he'd say yes. Not for the money, because it would put him where he belonged. That evening, after Andrew left, leaving a bag of expensive eye meds for Mom on the table, there was a quiet knock at the door. Alex opened it. Natalie stood on the porch in a winter coat and a fluffy hat, cheeks pink from the cold. You taking visitors? You, always, he said, letting her in. Natalie said hello to Anna, then casually pulled a jar of raspberry jam from her bag, thick as summer. Time for your dressing change, she said sternly, but her eyes were laughing. And don't argue, Morrison. I'm the medical professional. I know what I'm doing. Alex obediently sat on the stool and held out his hand. Her fingers, warm, gentle, touched the scars. It's healing, she said. The scar will be rough, but the movement will come back if you work it. I will, he said, watching her bowed head, the strand of hair that had slipped out from under her hat. The three of them sat in the kitchen. They drank tea with raspberry jam and talked about nothing, about the weather, electricity prices, how Christmas was coming soon. Alex looked at them and felt something new begin to grow inside him, inside that black hole prison had left behind. Something calm, something bright. He remembered that first day stepping off the bus. Dust, emptiness, loneliness. Back then, it had seemed like his life was over. But life was smarter than that. It took him through humiliation, through mud, through fire, so he'd understand one simple thing. Freedom isn't a release paper, and it isn't cash in your pocket. Freedom is when there's someone worth protecting, when there's a home with a light on, and when you can look people in the eyes without dropping your gaze. What are you thinking about? Natalie asked, covering his hand with hers. Alex flinched, coming back to the moment. He smiled, and for the first time in years, that smile reached not just his lips, but his eyes. I'm thinking we should put up a Christmas tree. A big one, up to the ceiling. I had one like that when I was a kid. Glass ornaments, cotton for snow. The decorations are in the attic. His mother perked up. In the old suitcase. I kept them safe. Then we'll get them. Tomorrow I'll go into the woods and pick the fluffiest one myself. Just be careful out there. Natalie squeezed his hand. Don't go playing hero. I'm not a hero anymore, Natalie. I'm just living. Outside, it had fully turned dark. The town of Maplewood, blanketed in snow, slept. And in one house, under a new roof, 3 people sat. People life had broken and twisted, but still managed to weave into one pattern. Alex looked at his mother, dozing at the table, and at Natalie, quietly gathering the cups. The emptiness was gone. He was home. A person can endure anything: prison, betrayal, poverty, You only break in one case if you stop believing you're human. Alex didn't get his name back when they handed him his release papers. He got it back when he forgave his brother and didn't walk past someone else's pain. Life is like a clay pit. Digging is hard and dirty, but if you don't stop, you'll reach clean water. Did Alex's story move you? Do you think he did the right thing by forgiving his brother? Or is forgiveness for the weak? Write what you think in the comments. It really matters to me. And if this story hit you in the heart, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about real life with no sugarcoating. See you in the next stories.